The third of the 4 hands-on Data Cloud modules. This one is called Create Insights Using Data Cloud. Up at the top, we see the area where if you don't have an active org, you could spin one up. If you do, you can launch it. I already have mine launched over here, and I'm going to scroll past this part, which you should read, to the hands-on section. So first thing we're going to do is verify the unification that we did in the previous hands-on activity. And so we are already in the Data Cloud app, which we accessed from the app launcher. I'm already in the Identity Resolutions tab, and I can select from recently viewed the individual match rule set that we created last time. And after letting that run for a while, we may have seen a message up here that said it was working and finally succeeded. We may need to refresh the screen to see the consolidation. So of the 42 source profiles, this was able to be combined into 39 unified profiles, which isn't very much. It's a 7% consolidation rate. All of them are known unified profiles, meaning we could identify enough information to know who that data belongs to, and none of them are anonymous profiles where maybe some data could be unified, but we don't have enough information to actually know who it belongs to. So now we can move forward to create a calculated insight from the builder. And for this, we need to go create a new data stream. So we're going to the Data Streams tab, we're clicking New, we're going to choose Salesforce CRM again, and we'll notice that the data kits that are installed, but the streams need to be installed as an option here, and all of these very many MuleSoft connectors. But for this exercise, we're going to be pulling in data from a Salesforce CRM org. And we're not going to use a data bundle here. We're going to choose all objects and go ahead and search for case. Here is case. I'll select it and click next. And it says to leave all the data stream fields selected and click next. We can see that they're all selected. And then here's an important step. It's over here on the side. It looks kind of small, but this is an important thing to memorize and to know that every stream we bring in, we're going to specify, is this a profile type of stream where it's information about the customer that can be unified into a unified profile? Or is this engagement data? Is this about their interactions with our company, such as clicks and marketing messages, or purchases, or opening support tickets, or walking into a store where there's a geofence? So that would be engagement type of data. And then the other kind of data would be neither profile nor engagement data, but could be something like names and addresses of stores or products. So it might be data that's used by one of the other streams, but is not profile or engagement data. So in this case, because these are cases, this is ways that people are interacting with the company, that is engagement data. So we're going to choose this category, and note that you cannot change the category after saving the data stream. And be sure to consider the consumption credits that will be consumed by creating a data stream of the category that you're selecting. If you needed to change the category of a data stream, you would have to delete the data stream and start over to bring the data stream in and specify which category of the type of data that's coming in. So let's check and make sure we are told to choose engagement. We are choosing engagement. The other thing that happens is let's switch it to profile just for fun, and we see that there's nothing down here about date. But when we choose engagement, we must specify of the data that's coming in, which of the date fields will we use as the event time field. So it's bringing up only the fields that we could choose from the source data, from the case stream. And it's telling us to choose created date, and the learning material tells us to, select this choice carefully because you want it to be a meaningful date, the most meaningful date and the most diverse date. In this case, you might get a lot of records that were created on the same day, but if it's the best thing that you can use, then that's what you choose. And that's what this module is telling us to do. So now we have specified the engagement category and the event time field. We can click next and deploy, and that may take a minute. So we can go on to the next section of mapping case to a data model object. So we're going to go to the data mapping section in the case data stream. So we are here on the case data stream. Here is the data mapping section. Here is the start button. So I'm going to click the start button. And from the data model entities area, right now, this is the data lake object fields, and none of them are mapped to the data model because we didn't do this from a bundle where mapping comes with it. We did it from a CRM object, and we have to do the mapping ourselves. We even have to tell it which object in the data model we are going to map this to. So we want to map to the case object in the data model. So I'll search for case. Here it is. And these will be all the fields. And I will click the plus sign. The check mark came. And I can click done. And now it has mapped automatically. Isn't that nice? But it is our responsibility to check and make sure that this default mapping that Data Cloud made for us is correct for our use case. And hopefully we did a careful study of all of this early on and decided what would be mapped to what for our later purposes. So in this case, we're moving through this module, and let's see, there are several more fields to map. Search for these fields and map. So we see displayed the 11 fields that are mapped, and down here in this little unassuming place that in another object might be hidden way down are the unmapped fields. So we can open that up and see the fields that are available to be mapped to. And so we could just do it this way, or we could search. And the first one it wants us to search for is case status. There it is. And on this side, we're going to search for status. And I click here. It seems like nothing happens. But as I start to move, I just always wrestle with this. Somehow it selected the field instead of selecting the little button. But maybe if I go over here and, yep, there we go. So just by coming over to the other side and hovering, we see the dotted line. And if I click here, then it jumps up to the is mapped section out of the unmapped section. And we see that status is now mapped to case status. We can also click here and it will tell us status is mapped to case status. We could delete from here if we needed to. All right, and so we have a couple more to do. We have account and account ID. So I'm going to click here. Nothing seems to happen until I come over here and hover, and I'm going to map it to account. Click. It jumps up to is mapped. And finally, I'm going to search for individual. There it is. And I'm going to map the contact ID. Click, hover, click. And now contact ID is mapped to the individual field on the data model case object. And now I can save and close. And now we're ready to create a calculated insight. So we go over to the Calculated Insights tab, click New, and we see what choices we have. We can create with the Visual Builder, we could create with a SQL expression, create from a package, create a streaming insight, or create from a data kit. So we are to choose Create with Builder, Visual Builder, and next. This brings us to this area that once again gives us a choice between a calculated insight and a streaming insight. We are going to do a calculated insight and click Next. We're going to select an object. We need to click Get Started, I believe. Click Select an Object, it says. Okay, select Input Data, Search Objects. So this is not matching exactly with the trial org at this time, but I think we're close enough. So it wants us to search for unified individual. Here it is. So this means this is the object that holds those consolidated profiles. And we're going to click Next. We're going to add a join. So I click this little plus sign to see our choices. We need a join. We're going to join case to the unified individual object and click Next. And this will automatically add and join multiple objects to create a proper join from unified individual to case. So this is where we see the link object. We have the unified individual object, the unified link individual, and the individual object, which was the original individual data, and the case data are now all being joined together for the purpose of creating this calculated insight. So select case and select Next. That automatically added all of these. Click Apply to verify your selection, which is down here. Now, it's not telling us to look at what is down here. We'll, I guess, do that in the future, but we'll just take a quick gaze down here to see that we're joining case. It's an inner join, and what is being mapped to what? Key qualifier fields, and apply. If I click the plus sign next to the last join and choose aggregate, and then click plus, now I need the count of case ID, and next. I'm going to name this count case ID and apply. Now I need to add a dimension. So I'll click the plus sign. So basically this is saying, how do we want to group the rows? We'll get a count of all these case IDs, but who do we want to count them for? And of course we want to count them for the unified individuals. Unified individuals. So let's carefully choose the right one. This is the link one. This is the unified individual one. This is the one we want. And next. And to name it, we will name it unified individual. And apply. And finally, we will follow these steps to add case status. We don't just want to know a total case for each individual, we want to know it broken down also by case status. So let's search for status. Here it is. And next. So it's basically like having two grouping rows in a report in Salesforce. We're going to group by the unified individual and then by case status, and then we'll get a count of how many cases for that individual and that case status. Now, let's see here. Click Apply for the aggregate selections. Okay, and then save and run. We're going to name this calculated insight Unified Individual Case Counts. And it's not telling us to put a description, though of course we always best practice would. And what does it say about the schedule? Leave it to the default, not scheduled, and click Enable. On the Calculated Insights tab, click Publish Now from the drop-down menu. Publish Now. After you publish your calculated insight, you need to wait for it to be available. After that, Data Cloud automatically manages your published insights. The insight is ready to use when the status changes from, mine says pending, and eventually it will change. It may take a few moments to process, wait a few minutes, and then return. So we are still waiting, and the last step it's going to have us do is go over to the Data Explorer tab. It went from pending to processing. If you're following along, you may want to pause the video until your refresh reveals that the run status changed to success. And now we can move on to the last step, which is to go to the Data Explorer tab, look for a calculated insight. Notice the choices we have here. We could explore a data lake object, a data model object, a calculated insight, or a data graph. We want a calculated insight, and we need to specify the object. I guess we're really specifying the calculated insight, which is the one we created, the unified individual case counts. And now we should see that for each unified individual, and let's see if we get an example of someone who had both case statuses. I sorted by unified individual, and it looks like this one is the same unified individual. For new cases, they have 1, and for closed cases, they have 3. So we see how the calculated insight dimensions, these are the 2 dimensions we chose, and this is the measure that we set up, and that seems to be working properly.